Okay? So the residual is simply that distance from the actual value. And what the residual plot tells you is it gives you a visual representation so that you can see, is your linear model actually even any good? Because not all equations are linear, right? You could have quadratic, exponential, lots of different types of models out there. So what we want to do is we want to see, is a linear model suitable for your data? And I'm trying to use words here that will make it easy for you when you do your analysis and you tell me what is happening, right? So the residual plot will tell you, is the linear model that you did suitable? Because remember, when you found your regression line, you hit regression, and then the next thing you hit was linear, yeah? You told it what kind of line to draw. That might not always be the case, that the decision you made is the right one. So what you're going to be looking for after you put your residual plot together is you want random plots, okay, above and below 0. If your plot looks completely random, then you can be pretty much assured that a linear model works, right? However, if you start to see any patterns, and the pattern particularly meaning a curve, if you start to see a curve and even the slightest curve, and we'll look at some examples, you are in trouble with using a linear model, all right? And so you have to reject it. Now, our data should come out to be a linear model, but we are going to be prepared to prove that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the book and look at a few examples, and so that you can pick out whether you think a linear model should work. Then we're going to look at some residual plots. Then we're going to watch a video of that guy putting together a residual plot. It's not much new, but you need to have it, and I want to get it in the video just in case you need to look at it later, right? So just going to the textbook. Maybe. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch a short video of him walking you through the steps of doing this and what it is that you will need on your actual page. So here we go.
This example is asking us to use Excel to construct a residual plot. So the question says, construct a residual plot for the least squares regression line fitted to the data in example 2. Well, it just so happens I have that data. So loading it up, what do we see? We've got my arm span and height, we've got my scatter plot, I've already got on there my linear regression line, but it now wants a residual plot. How do we do that? Well, once again, we need to make sure that when we go into data, we actually have data analysis. And if you haven't, you need to click on File, Options. Go down here to Add-ins, wait for it, and then click Go, and make sure you've got Analysis Toolpack on. That will give you this Data Analysis button, which when I click, you're going to scroll down, and you still want to do a regression, and click on OK. Right, so let's just check. Is my Y data actually highlighted correctly? Yes, it was the height. Is my X data highlighted correctly? Then hopefully, yes, B2, that's my arm span. Awesome. Now all I need to do is, rather than just click OK, I'm going to go down here to what says residuals. And it says residuals and residual plots. So I'm going to click on both of those, click on OK, and up comes a brand new sheet with, yes, the same information I had previously, but now with some extra stuff. I've got the residual output, and I've got my residual plot. But do you notice how the data is all squished together, making this bigger? Well, in the same way as I did before, let's move this over, and I know it's covering some of my stuff. But if I double click on there, up comes my format axis, and I can go, well, I think the data there is about 150 is my smallest. Bring up my keyboard, delete, 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 150, okay? And there we go, we have my residual plot. Now, why is my residual plot really important to me? Because we're looking for patterns, or more importantly, a lack of a pattern that suggests that there is a linear relationship or linear assumption has been met. So closing this and moving it over, there we go, there is my residual plot for the data we had.
And that's all there is to it. So it's literally 2 buttons once you get to the menu. What I do want to point out to you though is down at the bottom, that residual output. All of those are the predicted and the actual residuals that you would get. So what you would get from putting it into the linear model versus the actual value. So once you do this, you don't have to go back and calculate by hand all of these values. You can just mention a few from the table, right? So the values are there and they're calculated for you. And we'll talk about how to use them in a bit. You must, if you're going to get an A on this paper, use the residual plot to discuss why a linear model would be a good one. And you're also going to make some predictions using this information. So on this particular spreadsheet, you'll see that it already has the summary output with your R squared and all those and the standard deviations, all those things that we saw before, the x-intercept, the x variables, all those pieces that we've done before will be repeated. Yes, it's twice, tough. Then there's your residual plot. Okay? That is the thing that you can then put into your report. You don't need all of this. Some of this whole thing can go into an appendix. The whole business can go into an appendix, but when you are in the section on residual plot, I want to see your residual plot there. Okay? So you can just copy and paste the plot itself, and then you can talk about it quite easily. And we're going to talk about how you do that analysis. And also remember that if you put in a residual plot, then you must also talk about how you created it. So you'll go through the steps, just like on the other ones, and you'll go through the steps on how to create them. All right? Okay? So in the first one, no pattern. Therefore, we can conclude that a linear model works, but in the second one, there is a pattern. How about in C? Not really, because they're kind of random. How about in D?
Yes.
Yeah, if you look at this, there's a definite curve that would fit there. Yeah? So if you can draw a curved line through it, then there is a pattern, but there's no line that you could draw through these that would make sense for all of the data. Okay?